The challenges posed by the global COVID-19 pandemic would have been difficult for individuals, countries, or the international community to handle even in the best of times. But I think there's no one that could argue that in early January 2020 that we were in the best of times. Individual countries face struggles within their democracies, populism, deep partisanship. The international community was weak, whether it was the United Nations or the World Trade Organization or the G7 or the G20 or regional organizations such as ASEAN found themselves increasingly divided and unable to kind of muster collective action. So multilateralism, or what we in Australia refer to as the global rules-based order, was already in a difficult position before the pandemic itself. And at least in the intervening 3 months, the difficulties of the pandemic have served to highlight and in some cases exacerbate those divides. As we've seen individual national responses and some nations kind of retreating to respond to this individually as opposed to collectively. Now, having said that, as we enter the Easter season, we don't want to leave with just a sense of gloom and doom. There are some green sprigs that are, if not the us slipping into autumn here in the southern hemisphere, but for those of you in the northern hemisphere, that are indicative of the spring to come. There was a remarkable level of bipartisan cooperation in the United States to pass the largest ever stimulus package just 7 weeks after a deep partisan impeachment trial in the United States. Similarly, here in Australia, the Job Keeper package was passed with bipartisan support. Individual countries are showing great examples of a national unity, of governance, of core capabilities that are giving us some example. But in the end, what we thought would be useful to leave with in terms of an Easter message, and this bears out in our newsletter for this week, is the absolute need for us to look beyond the end of this crisis and the need for individuals, institutions, countries and international organizations and the broader international community to figure out ways to work together to overcome division and partisan rancor. And that obviously leads us to a much more hopeful conclusion as we all begin to understand that however we may be locked down now for this holiday, that by the time we face this the same time next year, that we will be hopefully on a much more collaborative path as we seek to work together. We wish you all a happy Easter and a nice holiday break, and look forward to being back in touch with you again shortly thereafter. Thanks.